Good day, ma'am. I am Kitani Lawrence Nathan S. I'm here to present about the Institutional Agency of Philippines. So, Bureau of Corrections. The Bureau of Corrections is an agency of the Department of Justice which is charged with the custody and rehabilitation of national offenders who have been sentenced to 3 years of imprisonment or more. The agency has its headquarters in the New Bilibid Prison Reservation in Muntinlupa. So the Bureau of Corrections, or the Bucor, is the one who catches and detains the offenders of our society. So Bureau of Correction mandate. So the rehabilitation of national prisoners. Bureau of Correction slogan: bringing back the dignity of man. So it means that once they detain a prisoner, they will rehabilitate them and change their lives until they are released. Bureau of Correction principles: accomplishing its mandated objectives and performing its assigned functions. So functions: first is to confine prisoners by giving them adequate living spaces as the first conditions to be met before any effective rehabilitation programs can be undertaken. Second, to prevent prisoners from committing crime while in custody. Third, to provide humane treatment by affording them human basic needs in the prison environment and prohibiting cruel methods, and provide a variety of rehabilitation programs. So, Bureau of Corrections, operating institutions. So, the first is the New Bilibid Prisons, which is in Muntinlupa City. Second is Correctional Institution for Women. It's in Mandaluyong City. Third is Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm, which is in Puerto Princesa City. Fourth is Davao Prison and Penal Farm, which is in Davao del Norte. Fifth is Sablayan Prison and Penal Farm, which is in Occidental Mindoro. Sixth is San Ramon Prison and Penal Farm, which is in Zamboanga City. And seventh is Leyte Regional Prison, which is in Leyte. So, institutional programs. First is Inmate Work Program. Second, Healthcare. Third, Education and Skills Training. Fourth, Recreation and Sports. Fifth, Religious Guidance and Behavior Modification using the therapeutic. And last is Community Approach. So, mission: to protect the public by safekeeping and reforming persons under our custody, adhering to international standards of correctional service. So, vision: a safer society by 2028 through reformed persons reintegrated by a highly efficient and competent correction service. Core values: God-centered, centering our lives joyfully and dynamically upon the person of God. Vigilance: we are committed to enhance public safety by being responsive to the extreme demands of correction duties. Innovatives: we seek continuing advancement in corrections management in order to face emerging challenges and to optimize application of resources. Integrity: we promote accountability, equity, and exclusiveness by adhering to high ethical and moral standards. So, Bureau of Prison and Bureau of Corrections logo. So this is their logo. The three keys symbolize the 3th-century prisons. The Old Bilibid Prison in 1866, San Ramon Penal Farm 1870, and Iwahig Penal Colony in 1904, integrated into one office of the Bureau of Prisons. The facade of the Bureau of Prisons, with the iron bars and the post towers, reflected the function of safekeeping of prisoners confined in its custody. So, the seal signifies the productive and worthwhile activities that an inmate is engaged in while inside prison. The focus of an education as means of self-actualization and personal growth supported with sports, skills development, and religious activities that would help him assume a new outlook in life. He is also engaged in various livelihood programs under the operation of the agro-industries to enable him to have employment opportunities once released. So, the Department of Justice Bureau of Corrections logo or seal. The seal features a rehabilitated inmate which in white while in custody of the 7th prisons and penal farms, which is the bars. Through educational, therapeutic, productive approaches and restorative justice, he looks forward to a brighter future which is facing the rays of the sun, but would need the assistance of his family and loved ones, the society and the church, for him to completely undergo transformation and reintegrate successfully in the community. So, the Bureau of Corrections logo. The Bureau of Corrections was founded in 1905. The 11 bay leaves, which represent a decade per leaf, refer to the achievement and developments of Bucor since its existence. It also covered the 112th anniversary of Bucor, where its first ever modernization law put into place. The man figure represents the prison deprived of liberty who had undergone security and effective rehabilitation programs, which is in prison railings with green background. True meaningful justice is about to be released from prison, facing the east where the sun rises, which represents the free society and symbolizes new hope. The 7 rays of the sun further symbolize the 7 operating prison and the penal farms of Bucor. So, legal basis. The Bureau of Prisons was established on November 1, 1905 under the Department of Public Instruction through Reorganization Act 1407 of the Philippine Commission until it was transferred to the Department of Justice. The prison law incorporated in Chapter 45 of the Revised Administrative Code of 1917. Section 26 of the Administrative Code of 1987, November 23, 1989 under Proclamation Number 495 of the President of the Philippines changed the name of the Bureau of Prison to Bureau of Corrections. On May 24, 2013, President Benigno Simeon C. Aquino III signed into law the Republic Act No. 10575, otherwise known as the Bureau of Corrections Act of 2013, which provides for the modernization, professionalization, and restructuring of the Bureau. So, the Code of Kalintiao. So, the Code of Kalintiao. Code of Kalintiao. The Code of Raja Kalintiao was a supposed legal code in the epic history Maragtas that is said to have been written in 1433 by Dato Kalintiao, a chief of the island of Negros in the Philippines. The code is now believed by many historians to have been a hoax and that it had actually been written in 1913 by Jose E. Marco as a part of his historical fiction Las Antiguas Leyendas de la Isla de Negros, or which is in English, The Ancient Legends of the Islands of Negros, which he attributed to a priest named Jose Marco. So, general history. The famous epic story of Maragtas there was this mythical legal code called the Code of Calintiao. It was named after its supposed author, Dato Calantiao, who allegedly wrote it in 1433. Dato Calantiao was a chief on the island of Negros. It was written about by Jose E. Marco in 1913 in his historical fiction Las Antiguas Leyendas de la Isla de Negros, which means the ancient of legends of the islands of Negros. He ascribed its source to a priest named Jose Maria Pavon. So this is the map of the Philippines. The historian Josue Songcoya wrote about the Code of Calantiao in 1917 in his book Historia Prehispana de Filipinas, which means Pre-Hispanic History of the Philippines, where he transferred the location of the origin of the code from Negros to Panay because he contended that said code may have been related to the Binirayan festival. The story on this code has been recognized through the ages by known authors. In 1968, however, historian William Henry Scott called this a hoax in his book, Pre-Hispanic Source Materials for the Study of Philippine History. Consequently, Filipino historians agreed to expunge the Code of Calantiao in future materials on Philippine history. Although the said code ceases to be part of the text of Philippine history, however, many still believe its validity. So, Article 1. You shall not kill, neither shall you steal, neither shall you do harm to the aged, lest you incur the danger of death. All those who infringe this order shall be condemned to death by being drowned in the river or in boiling water. Article 2. You shall not kill, neither shall you steal, neither shall you do harm to the aged, lest you incur the danger of death. All those who infringe this order shall be condemned to death by being drowned in the river or in boiling water. Article 3. Obey you. Let no one have women that are very young, nor more than he can support, nor be given to excessive lust. He who does not comply with, obey, and observe this order shall be condemned to swim for 3 hours for the first time and for the second time, to be beaten to death with sharp thorns. Article 4. Observe and obey. Let no one disturb the quiet of the graves. When passing by the graves, caves, and trees, where they are, give respect to them. He who does not observe this shall be killed by ants or beaten to death with thorns. Article 5. You shall obey. He who exchanges for food, let it be always done in accordance with his sword. He who does not comply shall be beaten for 1 hour. He who repeats the offenses shall be exposed for 1 day among ants. Article 6. You shall be obliged to revere sites that are held in respect, such as those of trees or recognized worth and other sites. He who fails to comply shall pay with 1 month's work in gold or in money. Article 7. This shall be put to death: he who kills trees of venerable appearance, who shoot arrows at night at old men and women, he who enters the houses of the headmen without permission, he who kills a shark or a streaked caiman. Article 8. Slavery for a doom. A certain period of time shall be suffered by those who steal away the women of the headmen, by him who keep ill-tempered dogs that bite the headmen, by him who burns the fields of another. Article 9. All this shall be beaten for 2 days, who sing while traveling by night, kill the manaul, tear the documents belonging to the headmen, are malicious liars, or who mock the dead. Article 10. It is decreed in an obligation Let every mother teach secretly to her daughters matters pertaining to lust, and prepare them for womanhood. Let not men be cruel, nor punish their women when they catch them in the act of adultery. Whoever shall disobey shall be killed by being cut to pieces and thrown to the caimans. Article 11. They shall be burned, who by their strength or cunning have mocked at and escaped punishment, or who have killed young boys, or try to steal away the women of the elders. Article 12. They shall be drowned, all who interfere with their superiors, or their owners or masters, all those who abuse themselves through their lust, those who destroy their anitos or idols by breaking them or throwing them down. Article 13. All these shall be exposed to ants for half a day, who kill black cats during new moon, or steal anything from the chiefs of or agorangs, however small the object may be. Article 14. They shall be made slave for life, who have beautiful daughters, and deny them to the sons of chiefs, and with bad faith hide them away. Article 15. The fingers shall be cut off of all those who break idols of wood and clay in their alangans and temples, of those who destroy the daggers of the Tagalons, or break the drinking jars of the latter. So, this is the Kalantiaw Shrine. On December 8, 1956, the Philippine Historical Commission, in honor of Dato Kalantiaw, put up historical marker and monument in more than a half-hectare lot owned by the municipal government of Batan. It used to be the seat of government of Raja Bendahara Kalantiaw, then the third chief of Panay and promulgator of the famous Code of Kalantiaw. Its marker was constructed by the Philippine Historical and Cultural Society. So, Bilibid Prison. Bilibid Prison, the Manila City Jail, popularly known as Old Bilibid Prison, is a detention center in Manila, Philippines. The jail is one of the most overcrowded in the world. History from 19th and 20th century. The Old Bilibid Prison, then known as Carcelia Presidio Correccional, which in English, Correctional Jail and Military Prison, occupied a rectangular piece of land that was part of the Mejalik estate in the heart of Manila. The old prison was established by the Spanish colonial government on June 25, 1865, via royal decree. It was divided into two sections, the Carcel, which is the jail, which could accommodate 600 inmates, and the Presidio, which means prisons, which could hold 527 prisoners. So the facility, the 2.4 hectares or 5.9 acre Manila City Jail has the capacity to house 1,100 inmates, operating at an average of 463.6% occupancy. Detention centers in the Philippines are the second most overcrowded in the world. As of March 2020, there were 4,800 inmates in the Manila City Jail. In December 2018, the Philippines topped the list of countries with the most overcrowded prisons, with the average facility population exceeding 600% capacity. At that time, the Manila City Jail was housing 6,300 inmates, or 90% of whom were pre-trial detainees. Also, as of December 2018, the ratio of guards to inmates was 1 to 200, considerably higher than international guidelines, which recommend a ratio of 1 to 7. In January 2019, the New York Times reported that during one shift, the ratio was 1 to 528. Due to overcrowding, inmates sleep in shifts. Many sleep side by side on all available floor, space, and stairways, including in hallways and bathrooms. Some do not have room to lay down and must sleep sitting up. Those who can afford it pay other inmates who act as dorm leaders to allow them to sleep in 2 by 2 meter cubicles called the cobbles. Although gangs are forbidden, officials allow them to operate because they help maintain order. A spokesman for the Manila City Jail told the New York Times in 2019, "Formally, we don't allow inmates to police other inmates. Informally, we do because of a lack of resources. The gangs self-enforce rules such as those forbidding fighting and approaching other inmate visitors. They also maintain communal fund and help distribute food, which is scarce within the facility." San Ramon Prison and Penal Farm. San Ramon Prison and Penal Farm. According to historical accounts, the San Ramon Prison was established in southern Zamboanga on August 21, 1870, through a royal decree promulgated in 1869. Established during the tenure of Governor General Ramon Blanco, whose patron saint the prison was named after. The facility was originally established for prisoners convicted of political crimes. Considered the oldest penal facility in the country, prisoners in San Ramon were required to do agricultural work. During the Spanish-American War in 1898, the prisoners in San Ramon were hastily released and the buildings destroyed. In 1907, the American administration re-established the prison farm. In 1912, General John Pershing, chief executive of the Department of Mindanao and Sulu, classified the institution as a prison and penal colony wherein confined people sentenced by the courts under his jurisdiction. Under Pershing's supervision, several buildings with a capacity for 600 prisoners were constructed. After several years, the colony became practically self-supporting with 75,000 coconut trees, which were planted at the beginning of Pershing's administration, contributing to the colony's self-sufficiency. Aside from coconuts, rice, corn, papaya, and other crops were also cultivated. On November 1, 1905, Reorganization Act No. 1407 was approved, creating the Bureau of Prisons under the Department of Commerce and Police, reintegrating the old Bilibid prisons, San Ramon Penal Colony and Iwahig Penal. The Philippine Coconut Authority took over management of the coconut farm from San Ramon. In 1995, Congresswoman Maria Clara Lubrigat proposed the transfer of San Ramon Prison to Bongyao Town in the mountainous area of Zamboanga to give way to a special economic zone. Iwahig Penal Colony. Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm. This facility was established during the American occupation. It was, however, during the Spanish regime that Puerto Princesa was designated as a place where offenders sentenced to banishment were exiled. A specific area of Puerto Princesa was selected as the site for a correctional facility. The American military carved out a prison facility in the rainforest of Puerto Princesa. The institution had for its first superintendent Lieutenant George Wolfe A., a member of the U.S. Expeditionary Force, who later became the first prisons director. Governor Luke Wright authorized the establishment of a penal colony in the province of Palawan on November 16, 1904. This penal settlement, which originally comprised an area of 22 acres, originally served as a depository for prisoners who could not be accommodated at the Bilibid prison in Manila. In 1906, however, the Department of Commerce and Police, which later became the Department of Public Instruction, moved to turn the institution into the center of a penal colony supervised in accordance with trends at the time. Through the department's efforts, the Philippine Commission of the United States government passed Act number 1723 in 1907, classifying the settlement as a penal institution. They are required to reimburse expenditures incurred for their maintenance and that of their families out of the products of their farms. Upon their release from the colony, they receive whatever amount of money they have credited in their favor. After deducting the obligations they have, the wahig is subdivided into 4 zones or districts. Central Sub-Colony with an area of 14,700 hectares, the Santa Lucia with 9,685 hectares, Montebol with 8,000 hectares, and Inagawan with 13,000 hectares. Correctional Institute for Women. Correctional Institute for Women, in a report dated January 22, 1959, submitted to a committee created by Administrative Order number 287 by the President of the Philippines. It was noted that before a separate building was constructed, especially for women prisoners, all female convicts were confined at the Old Bilibid Prison in Azcaraga, St. Manila. The male prisoners were confined in dormitories near the women's quarters. Because of these conditions, vocational activities of the women prisoners were limited to embroidery. When they became ill, the women were confined in separate buildings which served as hospital with nurse and prison physicians. When women prisoners needed surgery, they were operated on at the Bilibid prison. After the operation, they were transferred to the infirmary for convalescence. Prison authorities were aware of the conditions that the women prisoners had to endure. Consequently, the transfer of the women to separate sites became inevitable. After a series of negotiations started by Prison Director Ramon Victorio, the Philippine Legislature passed Republic Act number 3579 in November 1929. It authorized the transfer for all women inmates to a building in Welfarville at the Mandaluyong, Rizal, and appropriated 60,000 for the move. The Bureau of Public Works made major repairs on the main building, and a workshop and infirmary were constructed for the inmates. The infirmary during that time could accommodate around 16 patients. In 2000, a new 4-story building was constructed by the Department of Public Works within the grounds of CIW. It eased the growing congestion in the facility. The CIW, with a capacity for only 200 inmates, had to accommodate 1,000 inmates. New Bilibid Prison. The projected increase in the prison population prompted the government to plan and develop a new site for the National Penitentiary. The growing urbanization of Manila and constant lobbying by conservative groups fueled the idea of transferring the Old Bilibid Prison to a new site, which at the time was considered remote and on the outskirts of the urban center. Accordingly, Commonwealth Act number 67 was enacted appropriating 1 million pesos for the construction of the new national prison in Muntinlupa. On November 15, 1940, all inmates of the Old Bilibid Prison in Manila were transferred to the new site. The new institution had a capacity of 3,000 prisoners, and it was officially named the New Bilibid Prison on January 22, 1941. The prison reservation had an area of 587 hectares, part of which was arable. The prison compound proper had an area of 300 by 300 meters, or a total of 9 hectares. It was surrounded by 3 layers of barbed wire. The institution became the maximum security compound in the and continues to be so. The camp housed not only death convicts and inmates sentenced to life term, but also those with numerous pending cases, multiple convictions, and sentences of more than 20 years. The increase in the prison population has affected the segregation system. Several foreign-funded projects, DOT, the prison reservation among them, the halfway house and the juvenile training center, both projects are supported by funds from Japan through the presentation of the Interdisciplinary Committee or the NAPOLCOM. Davao Penal Colony. Davao Penal Colony. The Davao Penal Colony is the first penal settlement founded and organized under Filipino administration. The settlement, which originally had an area of approximately 30,000 hectares in the districts of Panabo and Tagum, Davao del Norte, was formally established on January 21, 1932 by virtue of Act No. 3732. This act authorized the Governor-General to lease or sell the lands, buildings, and improvements in San Ramon Prison and Iwahig Penal Colony. It also granted authority to the Secretary of Justice to establish a new prison and penal colony in a suitable public land. A budget of 500,000 pesos was allocated. Several committees were created to pick a suitable site for the inal settlement. In accordance with the recommendation of these committees, Governor Dwight Davis signed Proclamation No. 414 on October 7, 1931, which reserved a site for the penal colony in Davao Province in Mindanao. The site offered ideal conditions for agricultural activities. During World War II, the colony was converted into a concentration camp, where more than 1,000 Japanese internees were committed by the Philippine-American Armed Forces. The Japanese were created in accordance with the orders of the American commanding officer. The organization of the colony in exile was authorized by virtue of Memorandum Order No. 60, dated June 28, 1943, and signed by the directors of prisons. After the liberation of the Philippines, the colony in exile in Palawan returned to its old site in Davao. A great deal of rebuilding and repair had to be done because the war had almost completely destroyed the colony. Sablayan Penal Farm. Sablayan Penal Farm, nearer to Manila than other penal colonies, the Sablayan Penal Colony is located in Occidental Mindoro and relatively new. Established on September 26, 1954 by virtue of Presidential Proclamation No. 72, the penal colony was a total land area of approximately 16,190 hectares. Prison records show that the first colonists and employees arrived in Sablayan on January 15, 1955. Since then, several buildings have been constructed including the colony's dormitories, employees' quarters, guardhouse, schoolhouse, chapel, recreation hall, and post exchange. 3 sub-colonies were later organized. One is the reservation, which this day remains part of as a protected rainforest. Another is in a coastal area. The third was used by the national government as a relocation site for refugees from the eruption of Mount Pinatubo eruption in 1991. Sablayan Prison is a facility where prisoners from NBP are brought for decongestion purposes. It follows the same colony standards as other penal farms. Leyte Regional Prison. Leyte Regional Prison. The Leyte Regional Prison, situated in Abuyog, Southern Leyte, was established a year after the declaration of martial law in 1972 by virtue of Presidential Decree No. 28. While its plantilla and institutional plan were almost ideal, lack of funds made the prison unable to realize its full potential, and its facilities are often below par compared with those of other established penal farms. The LRP has an inmate capacity of 500. It follows the same agricultural format as the main correctional program in addition to some rehabilitation activities. The prison admits convicted offenders from Region 6 and from the National Penitentiary in Muntinlupa. Provincial Jail System. Provincial jail system was first established in 1910 under the American regime, supervised and controlled by the provincial government and headed by provincial jail warden. Vision. An institution managed by God-centered professionals and trained personnel to serve as the principal catalyst for rehabilitation or restoration that leads to reformation of the social, physical, and spiritual aspects of persons being detained to develop as law-abiding citizens for eventual reintegration into the mainstream of society. Mission. The office of the provincial warden shall promote safe and total detainment and rehabilitation or restoration of detainees under its custody. Goals and objectives. Office of the provincial warden is committed to carry out effective implementation of all programs, projects, and activities relating to jail detainment and rehabilitation of prisoners being sentenced, detained, or held for trial by the Court of Justice. Develop and attend to the welfare of detainees in the provincial jail by providing subsistence and other welfare benefits and through provision of jail decongestion programs. Provide protection services and prepare the inmates socially, physically, mentally, and spiritually to become productive citizens for their eventual reintegration into the mainstream of society upon pardon or release. Public Attorney Office, or the PAO. Public Attorney Office is an attached agency of the Department of Justice which provides indigent litigants free legal assistance, provide indigent sector access to counsel all the time of need, implement the constitutional guarantee of free access to courts, due process, and able protection of the laws. Mandate. Provide indigent sector access to counsel all the time of need, implement constitutional guarantee of free access to courts, due process, and able protection of the laws. Provide indigent litigants free access to courts, judicial, and quasi-judicial agencies by rendering legal assistance in consonance with the constitutional mandate that free access to courts shall not be denied by reason of poverty. Vision. To be a God-centered and dynamic bureaucracy that is responsive to the ever-growing legal needs of the indigents, led by highly competent, world-class, development-oriented, and nationalistic leaders. That's all. Thank you for listening.